بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So I was asked to do a talk on Islam, marriage and the family, and I happen to have an entire program, and here comes the food. Don't bring the food now. That's everything. Anyway, so we're trying what we can do, because this is many hours, so we can do installments maybe once a month for the next few months, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll go. I know everyone's hungry. So this is called Islam, marriage and the family. Al-Islam wa Zawaj wal A'ila. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. So this is an overview based on the teachings of Islam, of marriage, Islam, and the family, based on the Quran, the Sunnah, fiqh, and contemporary scholarship. So based on the Quran, the Book of Allah, the foundation of all of our affairs, and the Sunnah of the Prophet, and then some of the aphorisms of Ibn Ata'illah, but read in a way that gives insight into our relationships, inshallah ta'ala. And then based on a book called 7 Secrets of a Happy Marriage. So inshallah this should be beneficial for those who are married, those who aspire to get married, and those who just want to learn something about the noble institution. And then also some aspects of child rearing also worked in. So the 7 secrets of a happy marriage, after the introduction from the Islamic sources, and then those are also prefaced by looking at some of our Islamic teachings in each of the 7 areas. So the 7 secrets are to deepen trust. One has to have trust in their marriage for it to work, to communicate effectively, to fight fair, meaning specifically not to fight fair, like 3 minutes per round, but to be able to mitigate disputes in a fair way, to diffuse power struggles. Many times our marriages and other relationships, even parent-child relationships, are qualified by power struggles. So how do we diffuse those power struggles to be money smart? Many times our relationships are stressed because of economic problems. There's plenty of love, compatibility, but not enough money. And in most instances there is enough money, but not enough wisdom and judiciousness in terms of how to manage the money, and then the economic problems ensue, and that erodes the stability of the marriage. Make love, not war. How to be happy with each other in a deeper sense, and then team up, how to function as a team. Many times our relationships, each partner is going one way or the other, and there's no concept of teamwork. But for a marriage to work, there has to be a concept of teamwork. A couple is a team, whether they like it or not. So since the couple is the team, they might as well be a winning team. So those are the 7 secrets of a happy marriage. We go through them in great detail. Tonight, I guess, since the food is here, we don't want to be too long. We'll try to get through the first introductory session, which looks at some Islamic teachings concerning the marriage. So marriage is the foundation of the family. This is something that we understand as Muslims. If the marriage is not there and it's not functional, it's going to be very difficult to have a functional family. And the statistics indicating the challenges that confront single parent families, whether they're male-headed or female-headed, usually female-headed, but not exclusively, are very daunting challenges to overcome. So the first aspect in terms of our Islamic teachings, our understanding that humans are created in pairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اتَّقُوا رَبَّكُمُ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَّفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. So, O humanity, reverence your Lord who has created you from a single soul and made from that soul its mate. And then from those two, وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. And from those two sent forth multitudes of men and women. So the male and female coming together is the foundation of human life and human societies. So knowing that we are created in pairs, we have to understand we were created to live together in peace and tranquility. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Amongst the signs He's created for you from yourselves mates, in order that you live together with them in peace and tranquility, and He's made between you love and mercy. Surely in this is a sign for people who reflect. So Allah says He's created the male and female. مِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, in order that the two of them live together in peace and tranquility. So if peace and tranquility doesn't qualify our relationship, our marriages, then something's wrong. There's something wrong. And inshallah shortly we'll explain what's wrong. So a big question is, how can we avoid dissension in our relationships? If Allah Ta'ala says He's brought the man and woman together in order that they live together in peace and tranquility, an obvious question is, if we find dissension, how can we get rid of it? How can we avoid it? So one of the first things is to realize that marriage is the way of the prophets, alayhim salam, peace be upon them. So that realization helps us to understand that this isn't some random, arbitrary relationship that we've gotten into. This is a realization of the prophetic sunnah. So as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, arba'un min sunan al-mursaleen. There are four things from the sunan of all of the prophets. As-siwak, using the toothstick or good dental hygiene. Wa ta'attur, using the perfumes, the mist. Wal haya, shyness. Wal nikah, and marriage. So these are prophetic sunnah. And just as so why is this realization important? No one wants to have a sloppy salah. Just come, Allahu Akbar, get out of here. Everyone wants to perfect their salah. Why? Because they're engaging in a prophetic sunnah when they pray. People want to make sure their rules of zakat are exact. The right amount of money goes to the proper recipient. Why? Because they're implementing a prophetic practice. And so when we realize that marriage is also a prophetic sunnah, Isa alayhi salam is said when he comes back, he'll get married. Amongst the things he'll do upon his return, alayhi salam. So understanding that we're living and we're trying to keep alive in the world a prophetic sunnah, this behooves us to perfect our marriage, just as we perfect our salah, just as we study and try to do hajj as perfectly as possible. We even practice, we have dry runs, go see Imam Tahir and go to his class so we can perfect our hajj. So the same thing for marriage. We should try to perfect our marriage, realizing this is the way of the prophets, alayhi salam. So this is why we reflect on that. Secondly, we should understand dissension in marriage is instigated by shaitan. So Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran describing the shayateen, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مِنْ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ, the angels at Babel, مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ, those things that cause dissension between a man and his wife. So, and there's hadith and related hadith where shaitan, he sends out his dupes and he tells them to make dissension between the man and his wife. One of them goes and he agitates them and he gets them to fight. And he goes back to Shaitan. He asks him, what have you done? He says, I caused the man and the woman to fight each other. He said, you haven't done anything, because after you left, they reconciled. And then another one, he agitated them until they fought and argued and disputed until they divorced. And then he comes back and Shaitan says, this one has done something. Then some virgin said he takes his crown off and puts it on his head. So Shaitan loves generally to oppose all of the objectives established by Allah Ta'ala, and specifically to undermine and destroy marriages. So we want to defeat Shaitan. None of us wants, when there's west in our prayer, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. When some vile thought comes to us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. And similarly, when we find ourselves falling into those arguments and disputations in our marriages, we should also be inclined to think and to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I'm not going to let Shaitan waylay me. I'm not going to let Shaitan cause me to lose an objective established by Allah. Allah says, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, to live together with them in peace and tranquility. Shaitan, what does he say? فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرَّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. So he's trying to undermine that peace and tranquility. We should say, I'm not going to let it happen. So a lot of it's how we approach life. So one way to defeat Shaitan, the Satan, is by having a purpose in our life. Some of us, we just drift. There's no purpose in our life, and we bring that sense of purposelessness into our marriages. We bring it into our child rearing practice. So we don't see, I'm sacrificing for that child so that child can grow up and be a stable adult. So that child can grow up and give something back to humanity. We just see the day-to-day, the babies, well, the baby stopped crying. And I want to take a day off work. I got to pay these bills. And so the day-to-day can open the way for Shaitan. But when we have a purpose, we know, no, I'm doing this for the future of this child. I'm doing this for the future of the community. I'm doing this for the future of humanity. This is why I'm making these sacrifices. So alhamdulillah, I gladly do this, because I'm living with a purpose. My marriage, the same thing. You know, I'm implementing and upholding in the world a divine sunnah that's under attack from every angle. Last year, this country had the dubious distinction, some of you might have heard, 2010, the first year in American history, based on the 2010 census, that more people were living together outside of marriage than inside of marriage. That's a bad sign. That's a very bad sign. Because why? It's a sign that Shaitan is waylaying people. And so the Muslim says, no, I'm going to waylay Shaitan. I'm going to waylay Shaitan. I'm going to lay one on Shaitan. I'm not going to let Satan defeat me. And so we live with a purpose. And that purpose, I had I had an Arabic class. It was older women in the class. So we were having a discussion on marriage. And one of the ladies, she said that me and my husband, we have a wonderful marriage. We're all older. We've been married 30, 40 years. And one of the things that has kept us going through thick and thin is that we decided early on that before we're going to be committed to each other, we're going to be committed to the institution of marriage. That's a profound statement. So in other words, we're committed to this institution as a divinely revealed, prophetically sanctioned institution. And so we're committed to maintaining the integrity, the viability, the efficacy of this institution before we're committed to each other. And so, I had to think about that for a few minutes. Wow, that's deep. But if you think about it, that's how because we're committed to Islam. And marriage is fundamental aspect of Islam. And it lays the foundation for the attainment of many of the objectives of the Sharia. So we should be committed to that as much as we're committed to our spouse. And inshallah, that will take us a long way. Finally, to know that we're in this life, we're going to be tested. That life is not a trial-free endeavor. I was speaking earlier to someone after Juma, about how a lot of us in general, maybe no one here, but in our society in general, owing to just the nature of postmodern society, we want to have everything conform to us, because we've been steeped here in America, even before rampant egoism overwhelmed people. We had the idea of rugged American individualism. Rugged American individualism. The frontier spirit. Be out on the frontier with nobody. Just a rugged individual. I can make it on my own. Some people say the crib was invented to create children with rugged individualism. Now you look at all over the world, babies are attached to their mothers. They're wrapped up in something in the front or wrapped up in something on the back. We're going to know. We're going to take them away and put them in this cage so they can be rugged individuals. So you combine rugged individualism with rampant egoism. Just me, I'm not individualistic like that. I'm committed to 3 people. Me, myself, and I. You combine that with rugged individualism, and then you bring these 2 egocentric, rugged individuals together and tell them you have to be a team now. You're married. That's a tall order. And a lot of people can't meet it. And it's not their fault. But they have to understand that this is a big test that we have in our society right now. And to overcome it is going to take a lot of work. It's not going to happen spontaneously in most cases. Some cases it does. Most cases it doesn't. And so that's why most people end up parting ways. So it takes work. A lot of work, and that's what we're going to talk about, some of that work. So, and to summarize, this is life. Life is birth, we come into the world, then it's trials, we're tested, responses to the trials, and then death, and then judgment in terms of how well we dealt with the trials. That's life. Birth, trials, responses, death, judgment. That's the whole ball game right there. And so we want to make sure we respond in the best of ways. And a lot of those trials that we experience in the world, they come in the context of our relationships. So those are just some introductory things. We want to define marriage because now there's a lot of confusion on the definition of marriage. So this is what Islam says marriage is. Joining the male and female through a contract that makes sexual relations lawful between them. That's what marriage is. And the important element here is the male and female. By Islamic standards, there can be no marriage between a male and a male, a female and a female. What the state wants to do, that's the state's business. But we're talking about Islam here. The male and female coming together. And when we say a contract, this is a contract that's consecrated in the name of Allah on the basis of prophetic teaching. And so that's weighty. Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. that the women have taken from you when they marry you, a weighty covenant. مِثَاقًا غَلِيظًا وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. It's a weighty covenant. Why? Because this has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This has to do with the prophets alayhim as-salam. This has to do with the foundation for keeping the prophetic heritage alive in the world. It's not a light matter, and we shouldn't take it lightly. We should take it very seriously, but it should be a source of joy and happiness. So here we want to look at, and then we'll stop, everyone eat, and then we'll continue next month inshallah, some of the wisdom associated with marriage. So one, it's a lawful way to accommodate the natural passions and lusts that most people have. So Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَخَيْلِ الْمُصَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. So Allah says it's been made alluring to people, something they like. The love, حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ, the love of their lust for the opposite gender, for children, for money. So these are natural passions most people have. Marriage provides a natural way to accommodate those passions. Marriage allows for the perpetuation of human society through divinely sanctioned relations. So by coming together in the name of Allah on the basis of prophetic teachings through a divinely sanctioned way, and of establishing divinely sanctioned relationships, this restores our humanity. Because once we start behaving in ways that aren't divinely sanctioned, we're reduced to just following our lust and passions, and then we're animals. And once we're animals, anything goes. Anything goes. How many of you saw the cover story of sorry, I was on the East Coast last week. I'll ask anyway. How many of you saw the cover story of the sports section of the New York Times this past Monday? Anyone see that? I highly recommend you dig that out. The cover story of the sports section of the New York Times. And it illustrates, without going into detail because they're children here, but it illustrates what happens when people lose sight of the divine sanctioning of our relationship. Lose sight of the fact that we only come together lawfully on the basis of divinely sanctioned. Because once it becomes following your lust, anything that satiates your lust is fair game. May Allah Ta'ala spare us. Marriage provides a context for personal stability and contentment. So when a marriage is working properly, it becomes a source of stability. So, you know, I don't need to run all over town chasing who knows who. I go home. Go to work, I look at my watch all day, waiting for 5 o'clock to home. 5 o'clock come, I jump in my car, bam, I'm going straight home. That's stability. That's contentment. So when a marriage is working properly, it's a source of stability and contentment because there's complementariness. And in the complementariness, there is wholeness. The Prophet ﷺ beautifully described a woman. He said, "An-nisa'u shaqa'iqur rijal." Women are the complementary half of men. And so that complementariness is a source of stability. One thing we have to understand is that there's no perfection in the world. A lot of people are trying to get married. They're 20 years old, didn't meet the right person. 25, didn't meet the right person. 30, they met the right person and they said they were too old. looking for perfection. There's no perfection in this world. Stop looking for it. It's not out there. I'm sorry. Your husband is not going to be perfect, sisters. Your wife is not going to be perfect, brothers. The guy you're looking for is not out there, sisters. The girl you're looking for is not out there, brothers. So if you get 7 or 8 on your 10, go for it. And then the other 2 or 3 will disappear, because you'll develop so much sweetness on those 7 or 8. Those other 3 you disappear. You're like, man. Said, see you with your wife is short. I thought you wanted to marry a tall sister. Who, me? You forgot all about that. What? Me? No, that's someone else. That was it. You forgot all about tall. You forgot all about that.
And it improves too.
And it improves. Yeah, see, that's the voice of experience. That Gray didn't get in that beard for nothing. That's experience talking. It improves. It's like a fine nectar. It gets better with age. So cast down your bucket where you are. Who said that? Booker T. Washington. To people like, oh, the water's sweeter up north. Man, you gotta be careful about that north. Drink this water right here. Cast down your bucket where you are. You know, listen. Oh, you've been married 10 years. The water looking sweeter. Nah, that water's deceptive, brother. You better cherish your wife and lower your gaze. Be happy. Sister, we know a case. Someone very close to me, wife left. Why your wife leave? We got married right out of high school and she never got a chance to hang out in clubs. 40 years old, 2 beautiful children, she want to hang out in clubs. Like, say, good luck, you know. 40 years old, running around in clubs. But she missed the opportunity because she got married right out of high school. Oh, cast down your bucket where you are. You know, thank God you missed that. Eyes burning from smoke, and that's the beginning of your problems. Marriage encourages good character. Because our deen al-mu'amala. The religion is how you treat people. Marriage is half of your deen. Why? Because half of our deen is theory. So theory about being patient and overlooking faults and giving preference to others, all these wonderful things that we learn. Where do we get to practice it? In the context of marriage. That's when we need the patience. It's no longer a lesson, it's a survival tool. We need the patience, and we need the forbearance, and we need to overlook the faults of others, and we need to give preference to others. All of those wonderful lessons on character, a marriage will improve it. So you meet a person, exemplary character, say, mashallah, brother, who's your sheikh? My wife. And she taught me patience, she taught me forbearance, she taught me to overlook faults. And vice versa. Sister, who's your sheikh? My husband. Alhamdulillah. Also, understand this is important for our families. Good character is not taught. You can't grow up in a dysfunctional home. You're seeing all this trauma and drama, and then you come out of that home, read a book on good character, and then you're going to have good character. It doesn't work like that. Good character is assimilated over time. As Imam Ghazali mentioned, al-hilm bit-tahallum. Forbearance comes through forbearing over a long period of time. Wal-ilmu bit-ta'allum. Knowledge comes through learning over a long period of time. Patience comes through being patient over a long period of time. And the home is the venue where all that takes place. So over the course of a childhood, a child learns to be patient. A child witnesses patience if things are working right. A child witnesses forbearance. A child witnesses and over time assimilates those characters into his or her characteristics, rather, into his or her being. And so we have to develop the environments, masjid, all our institutions. When the children come here, this is training for them. Just sitting still like this. MashaAllah, look at these incredibly disciplined young people. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Okay, just sitting. This is a dars in self-control, restraint, constraint, discipline. And so, time after time, majlis after majlis, these characteristics are assimilated. Shall I get up and start running? Bad. We got a deal. We got 5 more minutes, inshallah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made a connection between marriage, good character, and societal corruption. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِذَا جَاءَكَ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَانْكِحُوهُ. So he said, if a person whose religious practice and character, khuluquhu, pleases you, comes to you seeking marriage to your daughter, marry her to him. Why? وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ عَرِيفٌ or kabir. Some narrations arif. If you don't do that, if you refuse to do so, there will be great tribulation on earth and widespread corruption. So marriage is something that wards off tribulation and corruption in societies. And the foundation of that is good deen and good character. Good deen and good character. So those are the things we have to prioritize from, and those are some of the benefits of marriage. They cut off the means of forms of corruption. Marriage expands the ties of social relations. So as we marry, our families become intertwined. And so our social relations and social networks expand. And that becomes a basis of civility amongst us. Say, man, I'm ready to go bust that dude upside his head. Wait a minute, that's my wife's cousin. Oh, man. Oh, he's family. How we get people like that in the family? So marriage and that's the prophet, the wisdom of the prophets. Many of his marriages, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they created relations between tribes that were warring with each other, and then they became families. It's like, oh, we're family now. You gotta put up with them. So marriage explains that. So we'll just deal with the legislative ruling for marriage, then we'll stop, inshallah. So marriage is we mentioned a contract. As a contractual arrangement, is governed by legal rulings. By our fuqaha have established legal rulings. So one, the asl in marriage is that is sunnah. It's not fard. You don't have to get married. So it's sunnah if one has the means and desires to get married and is not devoted to worship, then in this case marriage is desirable for that person. But if a person, even if they have the means, but they don't need to get married and they're devoted to the worship of Allah, it's better to worship Allah, because we were created to worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So in that case, if a person has the means, wants to get married, and is not devoted to worship, marriage is desirable. Khilaf al-awla, or something undesirable, but not involving any harm. If one desires to marry, but lacks the means to do so, in that case, it is undesirable for that person to marry. married. Why? Because marriage entails responsibility. So a person gets all emotional. No, I gotta get married, brother. You don't know what it's like, and then you don't have a job. You don't have an apartment. You don't even have a good spot under the bridge. And then, okay, I know a sister. Man, a month later, they're done. I'm telling you. Marriage has responsibilities. If one does not have the means, it's not haram, but it's undesirable. Because 10 years of being single is better than 1 year of a disastrous marriage where you don't have any money, you don't have any place to live. You know, it's better to be single, I'm telling you. You can get, if I ask for witness, you get all kinds of witness. Can I get a witness? All kinds of hands be going on. So I'm not asking for witnesses. It's makruh or dislike to get married. One has no desire for marriage, nor does one possess the means. In that case, it's makruh for that person to get married. He doesn't want to get married, and on top of that, doesn't have the means to get married. That person should not get married. So not absolutely, but it's dislike. So one should not force someone. Brother, I know a nice sister. I don't have no money. I'm memorizing Quran right now. No, the sister needs a husband. You're the only single brother in the masjid. You sure you want me to do this? No, don't do it, brother. It's makruh. It's dislike. Marriage could be fard. It's obligatory. Fard. One has the means to get married. Fears that one will fall into haram, sinful activities, fornication, pornography, etc. If they don't get married, then it's obligatory. You have the means. You're fearing falling into the haram. Protect yourself and get married. Then it's fard. And then on the other hand, marriage can be haram. If someone knows they will oppress their spouse, it's haram for them to get married because our religion forbids oppression. So this brother just had a bad marriage, man. Wait till I get married again, man. That sister in deep trouble. My last wife, she trampled all over me. I still got footprints on my chest. Man, her sister, man, that brother, he dogged me, man. My next husband ain't gonna be like that. That brother's in deep trouble. No, it's haram. You can't get married, sister. I'm sorry. You need to wait a few years and cool down. That brother's in trouble. I've been training with Salahuddin. Rip out his esophagus. No, sister, you can't get married. No, it's haram. You cannot get married. I'm sorry. No. Get over that first husband first. And then we'll think about it. So we'll talk here, inshallah, next session, next month, inshallah, wisdom from the tradition. We'll stop here. May Allah give everyone tawfiq. Before we go to dinner, any questions, comments? Anyone have any questions, comments? No, it's clear. Inshallah, I'm still laughing. But in all seriousness, we should be cognizant. Those are legal rulings. Those are legal rulings. So they're as valid as the rulings for our salah, our hajj, our zakat, and anything else we might do. So we'll stop here. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah ta'ala reward you. Reward all these wonderful, disciplined young people, man. All of you guys, I'm going to award the prestigious Scarecrow Award. What's the Scarecrow Award? Like the Scarecrow, all of you young brothers and sisters are outstanding in your field. Assalamu alaikum.
So the way we're gonna eat